being spoken down to by politicians who are much more polished. And when I say that, that's not exactly a compliment to politicians across the board. I don't want all of my politicians to be as polished. I don't want that to happen. I want to speak to politicians and have them speak back to me in a way that's relatable. And when you listen to Donald Trump, regardless of the fact that he might have put his foot in his mouth certain times, regardless of that fact, you knew that there was passion. You knew that regardless of whether you agreed with any of his policies or not across the board, the man spoke with conviction. And of course, you get chastised for that in 2020 and probably moving into 2021. Different calendar date, different calendar that we're operating right now under. Same terms. Nothing's really changed that much. Billy, nice to see you. And I want to ask you something, Del, as it pertains to 2021, because we brought that up earlier. Why not get into that before this date in history? There is a comment over here from Eric John. Corporate media went from lying to make more money to lying because they hate President Trump and became activists instead of journalists. And you're right. Happened a long time ago, but you're right about that. Regardless, I would say that you're definitely heading in the right direction there with that comment. Billy, hello. Joel Bateman, you're proud to be American. So am I. Obviously, so is Del. Madison Williams Garnett says, hi, Papa. I went golfing today.
Hey, Madison. That's Garnett's mama. That's my youngest granddaughter, Garnett. And Robert and Madison are great parents to that sweet little baby. And tell her I said hey, and tell her Papa loves her.
Thank you so much for joining us, guys, live. We do appreciate that. J.C. Farina has a comment. Trump is going to stay in office for 4 more years. I have a feeling, and I'm hearing a bunch of different things regarding this. J.C., what I'll tell you is this. Whether he is or whether he isn't, the war isn't over.
No.
There's 4 years to prepare for, the next 4 years. And I think regardless of the fact of where Donald J. Trump might be in present-day America, we know what his sights are set on as it pertains to the future of his role in this country. Del, we spoke about something earlier on the phone. 2021 is upon us. We're always going to make sure that we speak from the heart and shoot straight from the hip. We're not trying to be Debbie Downers, not at all. But we're actually trying to raise awareness over here. And we do that across the board on WWAB. We raise awareness on different topics. Why not raise awareness as it pertains to the reality of where we are right now as Americans living in this country, Del?
No, we have to, and we all want to be positive. We all want there to be eternal optimism and sunshine just right over the top of that hill, and things are going to be good. But we owe it to ourselves to be realist and to realize what we're dealing with. And these next 4 years could be very, very tough. Well, you've got an organization that I just talked about at the top of the podcast. It's literally wanting to go in and punish Christian schools because they teach the biblical way of marriage and relationships and sexuality. And when you've got people that want to silence that and to want to do away with free speech and the freedom, not only to worship, but as I said, to exercise that, then that is dangerous. That is dangerous. And this administration is touting itself as the most progressive, the most liberal administration in the history of this country. And folks, we've got to be aware, and we've got to be vigilant, and we've got to do our due diligence. And back to that point real quick, Avi, about him always having to defend the fact that he wasn't a white nationalist, that he was a racist. I mean, they stood on the floor of the Senate and Congress and called him a racist. He is so racist, Avi, that this past election, he received the highest number of non-white votes of any president since 1960. That's how much of a racist he is.
That's not. You guys, check out that piece of information that Del just brought up right now. It's 100% factual and accurate. You're right about that. And guys and gals, right now, we want to do a segment. We want to bring back a segment that we actually brought back last week. At the last episode of 2020, I received, as Drosy likes to make fun of when I bring up this word, we received a smorgasbord of different comments across the board from the masses that enjoyed the return of this date in history. And of course, there's going to be exclusive episodes that are linked to Unmasking the Truth. We already taped the first. Another one will have to do with this date in history, and we'll have a lot more time to delve deeply into matters that pertain to history. But as you know, anything could come up. We could talk about cartoons, as we did. We could talk about movies. Could talk about sports. Could talk about our country. A lot of things happen in history, And on January 3rd, the first item Dell and I will delve into, and of course we can just skip over something that maybe isn't that interesting, or we can talk about some stuff which I have visual aids for. 1777, this date, January 3rd in 1777, Mickey Doyle, I think, was about 12 at that time. General George Washington's Revolutionary Army defeats British forces at the Battle of Princeton, New Jersey. And if I sound excited about that, I am. It's that history dork in me, Del.
Well, that what an important time for the development of this country and the birth of a new nation. And I proudly, and I think we may have mentioned this at some point in time on Unmasking the Truth in the past, I proudly live in a state where there were more Revolutionary War battles fought in this state than any other. So South Carolina played a big role in that as well.
I remember us talking about that on the phone the other day as well. About a week ago.
I knew we had talked about it recently.
Yeah, we jump ahead almost 100 years later. Guys, construction begins on New York's Brooklyn Bridge, completed May 24th, 1883. Del, you've been in New York, Brooklyn Bridge. Something about it, huh? Here's a big... Yeah. This is actually a picture of the Brooklyn Bridge in 1800, Del.
That is amazing, isn't it? What a piece of work. And to think that, you think back then, those of us that are of the age we are, that, wow, they had no capabilities of doing things back then. But that's a proof right there that they had ingenuity. That's simply amazing. And I've been across that bridge several times.
From an architectural standpoint, absolutely. Just to know, we're talking to guys and gals, 200, it's incredible to think the capabilities of what the people can do, what mankind can do when they put their heads together. You're looking at it right there, the Brooklyn Bridge. Although I'm a Queens guy, Del. We'll delve into another topic right here as it pertains to history. 1899, the first known use of the word automobile appears in an editorial in the New York Times. And I want to ask Del a question. I want to know if Del Wilkes would ever get in a car, one of these cars. Hopefully I bring up the right tab over here. Del, how about these? Would you sell these or get in one of these?
I think I've sold a couple of those.
Oh, okay. Yeah, what do they go for, you think, these days?
You could probably fetch about $1,500 for one of those with low miles on it if it's been maintained properly. But I tell you, we actually have. I've seen some trade-ins come through the dealership,
right?
That didn't look that good.
No.
Can you imagine? You're not protected from the elements. The thing had to put around at about what, maybe 5 to 10 miles an hour.
Doesn't it kind of look like a piano with wheels?
It does. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And boy, those wheels don't give you much confidence either, do they?
Definitely not. Guys, there is something else that happened this date in history. We'll run them by with some photos. Some sports. 1920. This was Boston Red Sox baseball club owner Harry Frazee announces the agreement to sell the slugger Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees for $125,000 in cash in 1920 and a $350,000 loan, which of course began the start of the 84-year hex called the Curse of the Bambino, Del.
The worst move in the history of sports. You talk about idiotic moves. That one was it, and you're right. That it just it seemed like it put a curse on Boston that they were unable to overcome until 2004, I think it was, when they were down 3-1 in the American League Championship Series to the Yankees and came back and beat the Yankees to go into the World Series and win the World Series. But he changed baseball. Not only was it a big deal for the Yankees, and you're right, it started that unbelievable run for the Yankees, but he literally changed the game of baseball. And I don't know the exact numbers, but there was a guy that played back with Ruth and maybe predated Ruth a little bit, and he earned the nickname Home Run Baker because I think one year he had double-digit home runs. And here comes this guy, and all of a sudden he's hitting 40, 50, 60 home runs a year. Completely changed the game. Unbelievable impact that he had. And it all went south for Boston after that.
And you know what? For anyone that ever, not that we'll bring this up now, for anybody that ever wants to make it simply about, drugs that might enhance somebody's talent, Babe Ruth didn't look like a guy that was on anything and hit as many home runs as he did. There's a lot of skill to this game like in any other sport. And it starts with talent and it starts with skill. And Of course, dedication is where it all emanates from. So Babe Ruth, absolute legend, Dell.
And you know the thing about it, Avi, before he became this unbelievable home run hitter, he was the best pitcher in the game.
Yes.
That's how he made his bones to start with, is he was the most dominant pitcher in the game, but his hitting was so impressive that they had to get him on the field every day. They couldn't afford to set him and let him pitch every 4 days. So he went from being the best pitcher in the game to one of the greatest home run hitters ever, and a guy, again, that completely changed the game. And not only did he change it, look at the star he became. I mean, he was a star worldwide. In Japan, they adored him. And he was a big deal there all over the world.
One of the first cultural icons as it pertains to American sports, without question.
Yep. And you talk about the things players take, supplements and stuff like that. This guy lived hard, too. He lived hard.
Yes, he did.
Of course, it shortened his life, that lifestyle. He was a double-fisted drinker. He smoked heavy. He chased women. He had every bad habit you could think of. And in spite of that, he still was the greatest baseball player of his generation and still one of the greatest that's ever played.
Without question. And you know what, like you brought, and I'd like to think, if you ever watched The Babe, John Goodman portrayed Babe Ruth, I thought, pretty well. Maybe the story wasn't as accurate as real life was. I'd like to think that in that last game, we don't really know what happened. I'd like to think he actually pointed before he hit that last home run. I'd like to think that actually happened. Something really cool about that. And guys, you know what else is pretty cool? And of course, everybody misses Babe Ruth. I know that the Boston, again, we're talking about stuff that happened in history. Boston Red Sox got rid of Babe Ruth. They missed him. Coy Little wants to know if Mally, according to her, she's letting you know that you might be missing 90 Day Fiancé, Del.
Oh, let me tell you the backstory to this.
I got to hear this.
My daughter, Mally.
I'm all ears.
She is a big fan of the show 90 Day Fiancé. And poor old Coy has been drug into this. I don't think Coy is as big a fan as Mally is. But because Mally loves the show, we are actually on this podcast the same time 90 Day Fiancé is on.
Oh.
So I think they DVR, at least I'm hoping they DVR 90 Day Fiancé and they watch this show. Now, I heard so much about it from Mally and the funny stories and the funny episodes and how this thing works. I can't imagine marrying someone that you've never met or that comes from the other side of the world, a completely different culture. And so maybe it was, I don't know, a couple of days ago. It might have been the day after I went up and spent the day with David. I woke up early and I'm laying in bed and I wasn't sleepy. I couldn't go back to sleep, but I didn't want to get out of bed either. I just wanted to lay there for a little while.
Sure.
So I'm going through the channel. I hit the guide and I see 90 Day Fiancé before the 90 days. Now, I thought this was the show they were talking about. Come to find out, there are 2 or 3 different shows that support this 90 Day Fiancé thing. Now, the one I got in on is it shows people sitting on their bed or on their couch, and it shows them reacting to the show 90 Day Fiancé as they watch it. And it was repulsive because all of them they're all laying up in bed and they're barefooted, and you're seeing the bottom of everybody's feet. And I find feet to be a repulsive thing anyway. Feet aren't good looking. They're not to be admired. They're not to be desired.
No.
Feet is what you walk around on, and most of them are ugly. And here I am watching the show where people are laying up in bed, and all I'm seeing are the bottom of their feet. And one guy's playing with his toes and rubbing his fingers between his toes. And then his wife brings him a bowl of soup, and he's taking the same fingers that he was rubbing between his nasty, ugly toes, and he's dipping his soup, and he's eating his soup. And I thought, this is...
You got to tell me how you really feel about this show, Del.
Oh, it was horrible, Avi. It was a nightmare. And so I'm telling Mally and Coy about it, and they go, oh, no, that's not the part we watch. That's not the show we watch.
Skip through that.
Yeah, it's a different show. So there's 2 or 3 different shows that's attached to this thing, but they love that show, or at least Mally does. She loves it as much as she loves the Beatles.
Oh, okay. So we're talking about 90 Day Fiancé and the Beatles. Also, we want to confirm this, guys and gals. We've got a new marketing team now that's working for us. We want to confirm this, and Mally Little definitely wants to confirm this. Del, you don't like looking at the bottom of people's feet? You sure?
No. Who would want to look at that?